Just subscribe. Oh, dude, it's like it hurts so bad. Oh, that's like TRD pain.
Notifications on. Enjoy the video.
Oh, God. Hello, C2 Wrestling fans. What is going on? Your boy Snowden. Another Friday Night SmackDown to get to. Another review, another show in the books for C2 Wrestling. It is a Solo Sikoa show tonight, in which we did get another little promo by Solo Sikoa tonight. We'll get to that. But C2 Wrestling coming at you. If you aren't subscribed, if you aren't liking the videos, if you aren't watching all the content, you're a fucking coward, man. I just don't know what else to tell you. Honestly, we're just going to tell you how it is. You're a coward at this point. All right. Friday Night SmackDown tonight, though. Taking a page out of the book of Monday Night Raw. What opens the show, closed the show tonight. And, you know, it was a fun episode of SmackDown. I don't have any complaints, but Monday Night Raw has been running that dry for a little while now. The show opened. Cody Rhodes. Out comes Heyman. Out comes Braun. Out comes Bronson. Heyman really just trying to, you know, get some controversy going between Orton and Cody Rhodes, trying to pin them against each other a little bit. And Orton ends up coming out, you know, to the aid of Cody Rhodes, and that's where Heyman started kind of pinning them against each other a little bit. And not much to it. You know, it really wasn't a segment that was all that necessary with the match happening tonight. I don't know. It didn't really add any stakes or odds or favor to it. Nothing that could have just been like a small backstage segment. It's fine, though. It opened the show, but I would have rather a match just open the show. You know, and to follow that segment directly, it was a match. Sami Zayn's U.S. Open Challenge. And, you know, this has been a highlight of not only SmackDown, but of professional wrestling over the last few weeks. Every week, I'm excited for the Sami Zayn Open Challenge. I'm excited to see who answers it, see who he faces, the match they have, who's going to finally eventually be the guy to beat Sami Zayn. There's a lot of potential opponents for him to still face. There's a lot of potential opponents that could be the guy to beat him at some point down the line. And tonight's Open Challenge, just before the commercial break to it, there's a backstage segment between Carmelo Hayes and The Miz, in which Carmelo Hayes finally tells The Miz, "We're done. You haven't had my back." And Miz is clearly pissed off. And that led to Carmelo answering the Open Challenge. You know, Carmelo's music hit. He comes out stage, does his little pose, grabs a mic, and starts cutting a little promo to Sami Zayn, saying why he is better off now. Doesn't have anybody holding him down, no dead weight. This is his opportunity to win. And before he can get down to the ring, The Miz comes out and hits him with a skull-crushing finale. So that tag team, The Miz and Mello, is done. It's officially done. I was fine with the pairing. Miz and Mello, I was cool with. I think they could have honestly done a little bit more with it. I think it could have been done a little bit better. I think it's a little tough with the tag titles being on the Wyatt Six. You don't want them to lose the titles really anytime soon. So I never really saw Miz and Mello getting a tag team title run in there. But I ran with this kind of, you know, idea a few weeks ago that it would have been great to see Miz kind of win them the titles. You know, Mello keeps saying, "Miz can't get it done. You're not helping me here. You're hurting me." I think that would have been a fun storyline if Miz wins them tag gold. But they didn't go that route. Miz turns on Mello. Mello turns on Miz. Depends how you want to look at it. And I'm looking forward to what's to come there. Obviously, a match at some point down the line. But following the skull-crushing finale, Aleister Black walks out to the ring and accepts the Open Challenge from Sami Zayn. And that's fantastic. I absolutely love that. They put on a great match. Arguably Aleister's best match since his return to WWE. And it ended with an expected ending. You know, Damian Priest comes out, distracts Aleister. Sami Zayn hits the haluva kick, picks up the win. But I like the idea that Aleister's even involved at all. He, you know, has been doing his thing with Damian Priest. He answers the Open Challenge. He's in a couple different avenues right now. Out of the few names that have been tossed around or could be tossed around as a potential winner of the U.S. Open Challenge down the line, Aleister Black, I would have liked to be potentially that guy. I don't think he quite will be now that he had that Open Challenge. I think they're going to go a different route. But I'm still glad they marked that one off the list. You know, you got the Aleister Sammy match in there. You got the Phoenix Sammy match in there. You know, what are some other names that can knock off that bucket list? And I think there's a few more. But Damian Priest, again, interrupts that match, costs Aleister the match. And, you know, to skip forward a little bit, there was a backstage segment a little later on with Damian Priest, Kit Wilson involved again, which I'm loving that. Even though Elton Prince is hurt and Pretty Deadly hasn't been on TV a whole lot, they're keeping Kit Wilson around. I think he's a good touch to just the Damian Priest story right now, too. You know, you have Aleister and Damian, and then you have Alistair and him going for the U.S. title, open challenge. He's doing a couple other things. You also have Damian and his main story, and then Damian and Kit Wilson. There's a couple things going on between all these wrestlers, and I like it. But Damian essentially challenged Alistair to a last man standing match, and that takes place next week on SmackDown, alongside a few other pretty solid matches. They'll be in Perth, they'll be in Australia next week, so different start time for Friday Night SmackDown. But leading up to Crown Jewel, next week's SmackDown should be a hell of a show. But we did get a couple new faces on SmackDown tonight. Not quite new faces, but fresher faces, I should say, for Friday Night SmackDown. Sol Ruka, Zarya took on Chelsea Green and Alba Fire. Chelsea Green and Alba Fire are looking for, a new woman for the Secret Service. Are they going to get that somewhere, somehow? Maybe. I don't really know who to add. I was trying to think of names off the top of my head, and I couldn't really come up with a direct name. This would be a good person to add to the Secret Service. Probably Kiana James if she wasn't paired up with Julia, but she is. So there goes that. Piper Niven seems to be out for the foreseeable future, so I think adding another name to that and making it a stable again is a good move, but I'm loving the touch of Sol and Zarya on Friday Night SmackDown. Fresh faces for the women's division on SmackDown, which has desperately needed it, even if it is for the women's tag division, which is kind of like a subdivision of all the brands, but still, Friday Night SmackDown gets some fresh faces. Zarya and Sol are fantastic. We did get another women's segment, I was going to say match, but segment after the fact, and it was the contract signing for Stephanie Vaquer and Tiffany Stratton. They go head-to-head next week at Crown Jewel. Crown Jewel title matches. Crown Jewel title matches, I should say. I guess I did say that, but, kind of put a space in between. Not a title match, but it's a match for the Crown Jewel Championship, which, whatever, fine. Contract signing for it, not super necessary, but it's something. It really was more so just to set up the match next week on SmackDown. Another match made official. We had Stephanie and Tiffany out there, and it was all not happy-go-lucky, but, you're cool, I'm cool. Let's have a respectable contract signing and a respectable match next week, and all was fine. But Kiana, James, and Julia come out, attack Tiffany. They're going out to Stephanie, trying to recruit Stephanie, I guess. I don't know. It was a weird segment. And that ends up not happening. Tiffany gets back in the ring. They're all attacking each other. Sets up the tag team match next week of Julia and Kiana James versus Tiffany Stratton and Stephanie Vaquer, leading up to the next night, Stephanie Vaquer versus Tiffany Stratton, which Stephanie's got to win, right? She's got to win that match. But we'll see where they go there. Another fresh face, though, on SmackDown tonight, we had on SmackDown last week. Nick Aldis gets a backstage segment in which Javon Evans is backstage. And Aldis is telling Javon Evans, you know what? I know you got some stuff going on with NXT and Showdown coming up, the former Invasion. But, keep in touch. I like having you around here on SmackDown. And then we get a interruption by Phoenix. And this was another, respectful, you're great, I'm great. I want a one-on-one match with Javon Evans. And I'm loving that Phoenix is involved to whatever degree he's involved. A little bit of a odd period for Phoenix, being that he was paired with Andrade. Andrade's gone, so trying to find ways to get him on TV. And it looks like they're kind of just rehashing the Andrade-Phoenix pairing, but with Phoenix and Javon Evans. They get interrupted by Los Garza, Angel Garza, and Humberto Carrillo. They both interrupt the two gentlemen, and that leads to a tag team match in which Javon Evans and Phoenix pick up the win. I don't know what this means for Javon Evans. I don't want him called up. I wouldn't be opposed to him pulling double duty, NXT and SmackDown, do the main roster a little bit, just kind of bounce around. I mean, he is bouncy. That is kind of his thing. So I can see them going that route. It gets Phoenix on TV, gets Javon, another fresh face on SmackDown on TV, adds another tag team to the division. A division that has been fantastic, but again, a fresh tag team to a division that has almost all faced each other at this point, We did also get a backstage segment, speaking of the tag team division, between the Profits and B-Fab, and it looks like the Profits are leading towards a breakup. They get the Wyatt Six next week as well. This time it is for the tag titles yet again. And I don't think the Wyatt Six are going to lose. I don't know if the Street Profits stay together after this. I think this could be the slow demise of the Profits. Montez Ford, Angela Dawkins going on to do their own thing. And I'm okay with it. I think it is time for Montez Ford to break off, especially. I think people are sleeping on Angela Dawkins a little bit, It's not to say Angela Dawkins isn't ever going to be WWE champion, but I think Angela Dawkins actually has a lot of talent in the ring. I think he's a fun character, I don't know what it is that people are kind of sleeping on as much as they're sleeping on, but I think Angela Dawkins could have a fun mid-card solo run. I got no opposition towards that. So I'm looking forward to the potential breakup because I want to see some freshness for the Profits. I think their tag team has run its course. The Hardys, Edge and Christian, the Dudleys, they all broke up at some point. You can't run the Street Profits forever. The New Day are really the only tag team in the entirety of wrestling to never break up. Big E, different story. But looking forward to that. Open Challenge again returns next week on the topic of matches that are happening next week on SmackDown, an absolutely stacked show in Australia. But we did get, again, a couple backstage vignettes, promos, whatever you want to call them. We got one from Jacob Fatu. He is so charismatic. That guy had a couple weeks off TV, and it only helps somebody like him. Really looking forward to the Fatu and Drew McIntyre feud. I think that's great for both men involved. Drew takes a lot of pins lately. He's eating a lot of pins. He's putting guys over, and Drew has a lot more potential to him. I do hope he gets his flowers again one day and gets another title run in there. But he's signing on to movies. He's doing a lot else in the world right now. He's going to be in this Highlander reboot, for those that haven't heard, also starring Dave Bautista. So we'll see where that goes. But that could mean some time off for Drew McIntyre at some point. I don't quite know off the top of my head when that is filming, but Drew might get a couple weeks, a month, 2 months off. So that is a little bit more reason to give Fatu a big win over Drew McIntyre when that match does come to fruition. But looking forward to that. We were saying it a few weeks ago. Solo Sikoa, Tonga Loa, JC Mateo, Tala Tonga. Maybe Tama Tonga comes back. I like these little vignettes of Solo hyping up each member of MFT. I still can't believe people really thought they were breaking up. MFT was breaking up. This wasn't going to be a thing. It was so obvious from the very first Tonga Loa vignette backstage that this is the route they were going. I don't know. Sometimes I really don't know if all of us are watching the same show. I really think 90% of wrestling Twitter is bots at this point. I don't understand it. I really don't. But another vignette by Solo goes over Tala Tonga this week. That could mean they're back on TV next week. Again, maybe we get some return of Tama Tonga sooner or later. I know he's been off TV due to injury, so hard to put a time frame on that, but we'll see where they go. But all this led up to tonight's main event. Again, what opened the show, closed the show. Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes team up against Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, The Vision. Pretty powerful matchup. Those are four of the biggest guys in the company. Cody Rhodes is the fucking champion. Orton is a 14-time former fucking champion. Bronson Reed is a future fucking champion. Braun Breaker is a future fucking champion. How many times do we got to go over that these guys are the guys right now? Again, a little repetitive to have what opens the show close the show, but it's a little bit different, fresher on SmackDown. But we get Seth Rollins involved tonight. The match ends with an interference from Seth Rollins, hits the curb stomp on Randy Orton, a tsunami to Randy Orton. Bronson Reed gets a big win. That's a big pinfall over a guy like Orton, and that might go undermined for a little while, but I love that Bronson Reed got that pinfall. That's always an accolade for Bronson Reed now. He pinned Randy Orton. That might be something that comes up way down the line if they ever see each other again in the ring. I pinned you that time on SmackDown, and that's big for Bronson Reed. So it looks like the Vision has the upper hand. Heyman is holding back Bronson and Braun from going back in the ring and causing more damage to Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton. Seth, not so much, though. He's telling Seth, no, don't do it. Don't do it. He's in your head. And Seth runs back in the ring to hit a curb stomp on Cody Rhodes, but it's reversed into the crossroads. Cody Rhodes stands tall to end the show. Again, next week, Crown Jewel. This is just another layer in the Seth Cody story. Yeah, I mean, is there potential Orton gets involved? Yeah, there's absolutely potential Orton gets involved in the Crown Jewel matchup. There's potential Bronson and Braun get involved. So maybe Orton disrupts them from disrupting Cody. Maybe Orton screws Cody and Seth gets the win. I hope that's not the case. I think Seth needs to lose the match. Cody needs to win the match at Crown Jewel. If you're adding this match into their overall story, Seth versus Cody, you can't just give Seth this random Crown Jewel win here. As dominant as Seth has been, as great as Seth has been, he's also a world champion. It would mean more for Cody to win in the grand scheme of it. Cody Rhodes also shouldn't really be losing matches outside of tag matches where maybe he's not taking the pin. I should say that. Cody Rhodes should not be taking pinfalls after that match at SummerSlam. Not too far long after that match at SummerSlam against John Cena. A hell of a match, but Friday Night SmackDown, I believe I hit all points there. Another one in the books. I had fun watching tonight's episode. Some great matchups with the tag team matches, 3 tag team matches, the U.S. Open Challenge. Looking forward to next week. Looking forward to Crown Jewel. For those of you out there, East Coast guys here for C2 Wrestling. Crown Jewel's on at 8 a.m. It's not looking like we're going to be live for this one, but there will be content coming your way. Don't worry. There's always going to be content coming your way. So stay tuned to C2 Wrestling. We ain't going anywhere. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the videos. Subscribe to the channels. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. I've been running long. See you guys next time.